First Americas video that we've made on the channel, so of course I have an EMEA guest. It's the head coach of Leviathan, Itopata. How you doing, mate? How's your off-season been so far?
Hey, yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, our off season was it was good. You know, like we had a few bumps. I think we started off very slow, and since we started off later than other teams, I think it was a little bit rough. But I'm pretty confident going into the season.
It's still feeling festive. I can see you got the tree behind you, and my brain is still recovering from all of the Baileys, I suppose, because I didn't know how to introduce the video. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're going to be ranking America's kickoff into the remaining stages as the year goes on. We'll mention it a little bit, but for the most part, it is all about kickoff, the bracket that we've already got released. You guys having placed third in the world, and in that top 4 cut of teams that went to champs, you've got a bye in that first round. You'll be playing either 2Game or FURIA, some Latin American rivals, Brazilian teams, I should say. Let me ask you a question about that. How are you feeling going into like that first game and having a bye in the first round?
I sometimes the bike can be like a double-edged sword, you know. Sometimes them having a game on stage is gonna be like a very big plus for them. But honestly, I feel like we probably got the best matchup that we could have gotten. Because if you look at the other options, like there are some pretty good teams there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that 2G or FURIA are not good teams, but on paper I feel like we got the best draw.
How are you feeling about that side of the bracket though? Because I have to say it's probably looking a little bit more stacked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about C9. I don't know how they look with their new roster right now, but you know, like NRG, G2, both are gonna be very tough teams to beat. So it is Americas after all. You know, like I don't think there's bad teams. I think every single game you need to give your 100%, otherwise you're just gonna get destroyed.
Yeah, you're the last team to play as well at the bottom of the bracket, from top to bottom there. So it's going to be an interesting one, right? To get started your season in that kind of context. But let's get started with the tier list itself. 100 Thieves is the first one that we have on the list here. They have kept that core. They've got Boostio, Cryo, and Asuna still. I mean, Asuna's been there for ages now. But their 5th and final player is Xander as well, from M80. Yeah. So I don't know how much you watched of Challengers last year, but do you think that with the changes made and Xander coming in, this is a player to be really excited about? And is he going to push them up sort of past that international level or keep them in it because they didn't make champs?
I do feel like Xander is a very solid player. I really like him as a player. I do think he's really good. I'm not sure though how much of an upgrade he is compared to Bang. Because obviously Bang is also extremely good. I do feel like they're gonna have the same level as last year, but with 100 Thieves it's a little bit specific because you know sometimes they can be literally the best team in the region, maybe even in the world, and then on the next day they can be like bottom tier team. So with them it's a little bit about the momentum that they can get.
Where you putting them off the back of that then? Because for me, instantly, you would gravitate more towards, I want to say top half, maybe like a playoff team, but maybe not quite like international level. I think they're a team which always really do well towards the start of the year. You saw that last year with this team and how they ended up looking going into Shanghai. But then just a fall off that seemingly comes out of nowhere. So maybe you keep them international and then they start to slide down as the year goes on. I don't know. Would you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think on the international, out of all the international teams, they would probably be maybe the last one on the list.
It does kind of come down to Xander in a way and how he's going to gel with the rest of this team. But I mean, we can start off by putting them in international.
Yeah, I think so. As I said, they're kind of like a wild card. They can go either way. I just know that both Com and Max said like really good things about Boostio and Ziggs as a coach IGL duo. So I do feel like they work really well together, and honestly, we saw it with 100 Thieves last year. I feel like they were pretty strong, especially split one. They were unplayable.
I'm glad that you mentioned Zix there. He's renewed his contract until 2027, so there's definitely a lot of faith in the project that they're building here, and if they've got the right pieces, then international early on is where I put them. Next up, 2G, other side of the coin, I think it's fair to say. This is a team which has just come up through Ascension, but not the one that we were expecting. A lot of people would have said M80, and no, that's fair enough for them. Even All Knights, to be honest, when you looked at the landscape and the other teams that were there, I would probably be looking more towards the lower end. I don't know how much you know about them.
I just don't know how they're gonna be as a team.
They have Spike, which is this youngster who won't be able to play until June, which, if I'm right in thinking, is probably around about the time that Stage 2 is happening. So it's going to be a while before you get the value from him. In terms of how their Tixinia Invitational went too, they did better than Loud, essentially, but I don't know how complementary that is to them. So I think the top end would be like playoff push, but realistically, I'm happy to put them in bottom and move them up depending on what we...
I think considering they have somebody that's under 18 and he's going to join later in the season, I think at the start they're going to be bottom and then they're going to massively improve when he joins.
Yeah. That's the thing, Valorant are still trying to, as an esport VCT, we're trying to field new talent that is homegrown in many ways. Like you saw it happen with Woot last year. Maybe there's a chance that's what we get from them this year, although I don't think it's going to be as much of a boon because you need that solid core, which Heretics already had. So, speaking of solid cores, next up is C9, Ito. What are we thinking about? First and foremost, what were your thoughts on the decision for Rossi to leave? What was your initial reaction when you saw that?
Well, sad for him because, you know, I coach him in TSM. I know he's a very dedicated dude and he is a good teammate in my opinion. Yeah, he did have some issues. From what I heard, he kind of had similar issues in C9, but I'm very sad for him that this happened. I do feel like he deserved the tier 1 chance. That being said, for myself and Leviathan, I was really happy because C9 was frying, man. Like they were really good. I don't know, as I said, I don't know how they're gonna look like right now because we haven't scrimmed them with the new roster yet. But they were really good with Rossi and Moose.
I was really fortunate to be able to commentate Homeground, and these guys are machines when it comes to Homeground. They get second place every single year. I completely doubted them on the tier list that I did ahead of that, like the power ranking. I thought that they wouldn't do as well as they did, but a huge component of that was Rossi fragging IGL. They've swapped back over to Mitch. Now, that one for me, I feel like there's two sides to it. There's the side where you rely upon him. He's a trusty servant. They've used him before. They had him in the NA play-in stage of that competition. They know what his calling's going to be like, and he pairs well with Zeppa. And the other side is like he's actually had some time away from that core, that team. You know, he went on oxygen. He was playing under Bonkar. Bonkar actually credited a lot of their success to how he was able to call the game. And that guy, you know, lots of people think that Bonkar is like VCT's future genius, like knows absolutely everything. He's a prophet or whatever. I don't know if you agree with that sentiment as another coach in the space. I feel like it's just a bit of a shake-up. I can see them making it into playoffs because they always make playoffs, but it's not the point where we get to internationals or maybe even it's more of a push from the bottom end. I don't know where you're at.
I think top half. I think they're like a playoff team. I'm pretty sure they're gonna make playoffs, and then it's gonna be interesting to see how they perform there, because playoffs is a lot about nerves sometimes, and maybe they won't be able to handle it. Maybe they will be really good with the pressure. So you never know.
I think a guy like Zeppa should be able to handle that at this point in time, and people are so mixed on him as a player, like whether they think, okay, he's actually quite consistent and underrated, or he's just an average player on an average team. I feel like it's no two which ways in what your opinion is. I think he does have quality. There's a reason why he's been kept here. Imi likes to work with him. That's also part of the partnership that you've got here too. And having your players, you know, that you like to work with. And I mean, I think you'll understand that as well in having certain names that you want to pick and play with consistently, but we can get to that in a little bit. Leviathan, not just yet for now. EG, I mean, speaking of pick your players, Potter signing a new contract. She's got quite a few people who have signed back on for another year. How are we feeling about these guys?
I feel like they're gonna be better than last year, for sure. No offense to like anyone from their from their previous roster, but I do feel like from the scrims that we had with them, I feel like they have a better chemistry together, better synergy. They play a little bit more as a team, but I'm still not sure if they have it in them to qualify to an international event. Yeah. I would probably put them in the top half for now, and then see how they progress throughout the season.
I would be happy to put them in front of C9 here, I think. For me
so, yeah, I would agree with that.
You look at it, you've lost one of the best, most flexible duelist players in the world in Jaw, who I think even giving an extra year to EG there, they were lucky to have him. Yeah. I say lucky, he was in contract jail or whatever, so like who really knows? But yeah, and you bring in Icy, you literally trading places with the guy who's just taken your job on G2. And one of the issues they had with him last year, I think, is that he was trying to play like the Yoru and stuff, and you know, Neon wasn't really in the pool agents that you couldn't see him on, I guess, and I just wonder how Potter works him into that system. You've got Ye, of course, as well, but Ye isn't bringing the same kind of star power that the name used to hold. We all saw the red carpet, and when you've got two players who have come from sort of struggled positions in IC and Ye, I think they can gel really well with the core of Derek, Nature, Superman, and Derek specifically, who I think arguably is probably still the best player on this team.
But I do feel like
on his day.
Fair enough. I do feel like Super and Ye are also very, very good players. Okay. I also like Nature a lot. I work with him briefly in TSM. I do feel like he's a very good player. Yeah, I mean that just speaks about EG. I feel like they have a very good roster, and we'll see how they do.
We will, indeed. Now moving on to FURIA. They've maybe not made changes to get people too excited about this one. Look at the roster. It's been shaken up quite a bit. We had NZR go. Zand as well has also left. Yep. It's a bit all over the place. And I feel like I don't have too much knowledge on these names to really speak to it, whereas I guess you've had a whole year to get familiar with these guys. What is it that maybe hasn't clicked with FURIA and why people think they're at the bottom?
For them to move up in people's lists and people's expectations, they needed to sign some superstars or like some of the upcoming talents coming from Brazil that are gonna turn 18 this year. Maybe that's why people are like kind of sleeping on them, but they did win the Invitational, so I don't know how I feel about them. Honestly, I feel like they're probably gonna be the best Brazilian team based on just the results from this tournament. Obviously, they won it.
Okay.
I think them and MIBR are gonna be like very, very close to each other.
It depends how heavily you want to take that off-season result, I suppose, and where you think that places them in your rankings.
I mean, if it was like an NA tournament, and I know that, you know, some teams are going there with just trying out some stuff and, you know, like experimenting and everything. I know that in Latam and Brazil, this tournament meant a lot for all of the teams involved. So I'm pretty sure all of them wanted to win it.
With that in mind, would you then say that they're a team pushing for playoffs then, and not one that we should see at the bottom of the list?
Yeah, for sure. I do feel like they're one of the playoff push.
That all on FURIA then? We're just gonna leave it at that. They're you know, good enough. They can move up, but we don't really know. Not until they start winning some games, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if they show the same level in the official games, I do feel like they're gonna be a good team.
All right.
That can make playoffs.
Yeah, G2. I'll take this one quickly. I can put them at the top. I actually went ahead and looked at the combined results of all of the tier lists that everyone else had done, and G2 are consistently towards the top end in sort of every single one so far. I think you keep that core of 4, which has proven that it can be so successful, make it to internationals, go pretty much as far as any other team except for yours as an American team in VCT last year in the Champions Tour, then yeah, you bring in Jorgamo, world-class duelist, to fill a role which maybe wasn't set alight last year. There you go. They've got to be a title contender. Whether they win it or not is a different question entirely. That's where I'd place them. What do you make of a team which you're probably fairly likely to face?
Yeah, if we win our game, I'm expecting to see G2, honestly.
Yeah.
I think the only concern I would have with them, if I'm their fan, is how Jogimo is gonna do as a solo duelist. Because obviously, when he won champs with EG, he had Demon 1 with him, and then last year I don't think he had the same impact. Like he was really good, obviously, but it wasn't like he was a difference maker every single. So that would be my only concern for them. But obviously he is gonna be surrounded with some very, very good players on this roster.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. You look at the 3 players that had been there the longest, the core, Jonah, Trent, and Valen around him, having some of the highest APR in the league, all 3 of them. I think all 3 were in the top 8 of Stage 2. And the performances they can make individually, where you've got so many names that can step up around him, it's exactly what you said. Is it going to be too individualistic at times, or is that security enough to keep him looking good anyway? Because we're moving out of a Neon meta. Like, all of the offseason that we've seen was just like non-stop spamming Neon. I think I saw him play Raze maybe once or twice, but other than that, yeah, it's going to be different. But I think Raze, in my opinion, was like his best agent anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be concerned about his Raze. If anything, I would be concerned about his Jet. That being said, I do feel like his Jet is also going to be insane. It's just we need to see how he's going to be in this.
What was the play of Americas, play of VCT last year? The Jet Blades against NRG.
Oh yeah, that was insane. So, that was insane.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right, with Jaw. The guy can do pretty much everything. It's the system that he's got. When I spoke to him, he said that Valen as an IGL is one of the best IGLs that he's worked with. Obviously, it's different to Boostio, but home ground playoff stage was a bit of a blip. But yeah, you move into Americas. That first game for them is going to be a tough one anyway. NRG most likely there. But then you get into the mix, right? Let's talk about Leviathan. This is what we sort of brought you on for, I suppose. You have won Americas in Stage 2 of last year after Shanghai, which was a little bit more difficult, but it's all been a learning process. You've come into the head coach role when you were initially taken on as assistant. You've lost some of your assistive staff in Goked and Juvenile, have both gone off to lead separate projects. I think it speaks a lot about the quality that you had there. Aspas has sort of jumped ships. You've had Demon 1 now come in as well, and the roster start to take shape under your guys. How are you feeling about the team in general and everything that you've learned over the last sort of 365 days? How does it feel to be back in this position again?
Honestly, it feels amazing. Like I'm really proud with what we achieved last year, and not only the second split, like the struggles that we had as a team from basically day one, which was like start of October 2023. We did have a lot of issues internally, and I mean, I was very, very impressed with how professional everyone is, and how they handled the issues that we had there. So in terms of that, I'm very proud of what we achieved. Obviously, I learned a lot. I came in from tier 2 thinking like, oh, I know everything, like we just lost one grand final. Otherwise, we're one of the best teams. But I do feel like there was a lot for me to learn last year, and I'm happy that I was able to do that and help the team reach winning Americas, then third in the world.
How are you feeling about the squad that you've managed to put together? And the elephant in the room, you mentioned the 2023 final. You signed Natunk. Where'd that one come from? A lot of people were very surprised with that move. What was the thought process behind getting him in the team?
So the whole process was that we started trials, I think somewhere in September, for Aspas's place, and then once we were like getting close to finishing the roster with our fifth, Mazzino left. So at this point we had to start the process all over again. So at some point we had, I don't know, like maybe 5 or 6 weeks of just trialing players. We did try to get some players that just decided to go somewhere else, and this process kept on happening a couple of times, which for all of us got really frustrated. And during the whole time, I didn't even know that Natunk was gonna be available, because I from what I heard, he was staying with Gentlemates. So I didn't even like bother reaching out or anything like that. But then I heard that they're getting somebody else, and he's gonna be a free agent. So we decided to give him a trial, and we were at the stage where we had like maybe 5 or 6 players trialing, and we were running out of time. So we kind of like gave everyone one day, and in that one day, like Natunk was without doubt the most impressive player that we seen. He fit really well into the roster. His ideas that he brought were really good, and from there on we just stuck with him.
Yeah. I mean, he had a life game against you guys in the BO5, right? I think everyone said it. And you put the pressure on him. You say you've got a day to make the team. He's having a life game in scrims as well, I suppose. Or just like the ideas that he's bringing to the table from what you're saying. It's about the comms too. How has the sort of connectivity been with other new players like Demon 1, for example, and Natunk is a crossover I don't think many people were maybe expecting?
I think they're very different players, and they're still like trying to adjust to each other, which it was expected. It takes some time, but they're gonna build up that synergy. I think it was going up during this 1 month that we had of scrims. But yeah, as you mentioned, like he is known to perform. That's the one thing I really like about him, is that maybe in scrims sometimes he would have days where like he doesn't play that well or anything like that, but I'm confident that we go on the stage and we need him to perform, he's gonna pull up every time.
Yeah, he was one of the best ACS players I think we had in EMEA like last year or something, right?
Which is impressive.
On an underperforming team with Gentlemates as well. So I guess it says a lot about the quality that he can bring individually. But then as a team, we've got to place you on the list. Do I just put Leviathan right at the top? Are you going to get told off if I put them anywhere else?
Is there one tier above title contenders, or?
Okay, alright, fair enough. So
just give us the trophy already.
with that in mind, you're defending your stage 2 title from last year in Kickoff, whereas Kickoff for you previously maybe wasn't as good as it could be. What are your thoughts then here? Is it like the goal is we have to make an international, or what's the where do you put the bar in your mind, at least?
Well, if we were talking strictly about Kickoff, I feel like we should be in the international teams for sure, and maybe we're the top team on that list. I don't think we should be put in the title contenders just yet, just because we had a very limited amount of scrim time. As I said, I feel like all the other teams in NA that we scrimmed were more prepared than us during December. Obviously now it's going to be a little bit different. But I do feel like we built this team with the goal of winning champions in Paris this year. So as the season goes on, I would expect us to become a title contender.
Okay, so as the Kickoff list, we'll kind of leave it here. We'll manage expectations. We'll put all of the pressure on G2, and then it's here come August 2025. That's what we're looking to. You know what? We'll leave it there for now. Moving onwards to another team close to home if you're Leviathan, I suppose. A rival in many ways. Crew. How are we feeling about Aguero's boys for 2025? I think this is a team which I was pleasantly surprised with last year, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Crew is a funny one, you know. Like, obviously, Mazino going there, we we do have something going on there. But since I cannot say put them in the bottom tier, I do feel like we can put them in the top half.
Okay.
And they're probably like the best team on the top half list.
Yeah. You wouldn't put them so far as international?
Not right now. I do feel
Okay.
like though, just as Crew does every year, they're gonna make champs somehow. So I would expect them to be there, but maybe I wouldn't expect them to be in the other two internationals.
In terms of Mazino as a player and working with him, then what do you think that he adds to Crew, and what would you lose by not having a player like him?
Well, we did lose a lot of ideas and a lot of mid-round calls with him, because I do feel like he is probably one of the best players in the world doing that. So yeah, this is what we lose, and this is what Crew gains. I don't know how their system works with the communication and everything, and I don't know how well he fits in there, but he is a great player, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna find a place for him.
Another South American team, a Brazilian team, Loud, a name which has fallen from grace, a name which I used to love, man. I was always backing Loud back in the day, but I feel like since 2022 things just haven't quite been the same. For me, you have to be looking at Kawazine here, Tui's as well, and well, Pancada coming back in, I suppose, to carry them through. But for me, mainly Kawazine, for these guys to do well. But you look at the off-season event, the one we were just talking about, Tixinia Invitational, they're being gapped by teams like 2Game, for example, who have just come into the league up against the quality that you have here. Something ain't right. I don't know.
Something ain't right.
Something ain't right.
I mean, I do think at the start of the year, they would be probably a bottom team. But I know that there's some of the young talent going there. I'm not gonna say who, but I know that as the year goes on, they would improve a lot. So I do feel like, and at the end, we're gonna see them in playoffs in Split 2. But for the start of the year, I do feel like they're gonna be a bottom team, and it's gonna be hard for them.
Yeah, I feel like the same thing's happened in EMEA as well. Everyone's just putting the Ascension teams right in at the bottom. Question for you: where would the Apex that you had last year have placed in EMEA 2024? Do you think?
Oh, I mean, okay, so this Apex roster that we had the first year, we were destroying everyone. Not gonna lie, like. I know it was scrims, and you know, like tier 1 teams don't look the same way as tier 2 teams, but you know, like some of the results were like you can't just put it on its scrims. You know, like we were just destroying teams. I do feel like we could have made at least one international with Apex.
Okay. I like that, man. And look, in my head, I'll tell myself that dream every night before I go to bed, and we can.
Hey, that's what I do.
But hey, who knows, right? For now, it's Loud in the bottom, and the team who has also taken another one of your players, Aspas, went and joined that. We sort of skip over how it happened and look more at the player itself. What was it like working with him? Similarly to Mazino, the same question. I say, what do you lose? You lose the Americas MVP from 2024. But from a team perspective, what is it that he brings to that environment that can make MIBR scary this year?
I think he was also the MVP of 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably, yeah, probably.
Probably, yeah. Like you would expect it with him. I mean, I don't know what to say about him. Like he's an amazing player. It was, you know, like you can always rely on him, no matter how bad things are going, no matter what's happening outside of the game. Like the moment he shows up in the server, it's like you just know that this guy can win you any game. So yeah, for me, I don't know. MIBR is a very tough one to go.
Like automatically top half, or not?
I do feel like Aspas alone would not be enough. I wasn't really impressed with the rest of the team. Obviously, I know Nozwer from the 2 months he was on Leviathan with me.
Yeah.
I do feel like he is also a good player, but I kind of have a feeling that Aspas might be stuck in the, how should I say it, in the kickoff Leviathan from last year when everyone was saying Aspas and friends. I do feel like it might be the same thing, and I don't know how much he can like carry this team out. Because last year, even though it was, I do agree it was Aspas and friends for a very long time. The friends were, you know, like King, Mazino, Com, X. It's like amazing players.
The company that you keep,
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I don't know. It's this one is very hard for me to rate. I do feel like top half for sure. I would be very surprised if they don't make playoffs. But I don't know how
you don't really know where to move.
Yeah, they did lose to FURIA, and I know that they were taking this tournament 100% seriously. So
okay, all right. I mean, look, we place a heavy hitter, and we still have 2 more heavy hitters to go. Yeah, I mean, I just to go back quickly, I do remember when I asked you when Leviathan, when you were at Gamergy last year, when I was wondering if you were still at the event, when I came to do Spike Nations, I said, like, you know, how's the team? And you just said Aspas is a cheat code or something, I'm pretty sure. So, like, yeah, they have the cheat code, but it depends what the rest of the team looks like. Who knows, right? We'll move onwards. NRG, lots of people very excited about this team. Verno, Mada, both coming in. We got Som back off the bench with FNS, which makes me really happy as well, to be honest, because I really liked Som. I mean, yeah, he had the end of last year, but you kind of forget about it. It felt like a transitional phase in the team rather than where they really wanted the roster to be at, but now they've got everything in place. Realistically, jump up to title contenders. You guys are here in kickoff. You come up later in the year, but this is where we're expecting them to be, like, right out the gate.
It is very hard with them because I've been following them in the tournament that they played in South Korea, I think it was, or it was in Thailand.
Yeah,
I'm not
the
really
soup.
sure.
You big soup
the
fan?
soup tournament. Yeah, and honestly, I know they won the tournament, and I know that they completely stomped in the grand final, but the whole tournament itself, I was not impressed with them that much.
Okay.
Like they are obviously a very good team, but I would have expected them to be a little bit better. And if you look at if you go and look at the stats, it's obviously like Verno is top of the server every single game, and I'm not sure how much he can do this in Americas during the season. If he can do that consistently, which I wouldn't put it past him, they would be a title contenders team. But if he is not putting up those numbers against like G2, 100 Thieves, maybe even us, like, you know, then they would have issues.
Okay. So do we put them down to like international? I mean, I don't even know if this is a kickoff list anymore, Ito. I'll be honest. I don't know.
Probably, yeah. I think right now international, especially if we're talking about strictly about kickoff, I do feel like G2 and Sentinels are the favorites to make it to the first master. So I think for right now I would put them in the international list.
All right, and you've already mentioned Sentinels. Title contenders? For me, I thought more of an international level team with the view to then move up, like some of the other ones here. And perhaps that's where the tier list is a little bit misleading with title contenders, that no one is truly built to win the league from the get-go, and I think that would probably be the case. I mean, G2 didn't have as long of an off-season as a team like Sentinels, or even Cloud9, for goodness sake. Everyone started in different positions. Bang and Narrate coming in, though. Bang super consistent from 100 Thieves, and Narrate, his performances in EMEA, of course, go without saying. Your view on them is then a title contender in kickoff?
It's mostly because of, you know, like we scrimmed a lot of the teams, and honestly I felt like Sentinels, so the only teams that we didn't scrim from the NA ones were G2 because they were in Berlin for a very long time. And honestly, it felt like Sentinels was the best team that we played against. That's why I would put them up there.
Okay.
But they are a team that's how should I put it? I feel that they're like a very meta team. They're really good at playing the meta, like let's say the meta composition on Lotus, the meta composition on Heaven. They're really good at playing that. The thing is, once the changes start coming in, patch notes, agents getting buffed, nerfed, it would really depend on how fast they adapt to the new meta. Because if they don't adapt really fast to it, they're gonna be left behind. Kind of like what happened last year. Like they were the best team in the world at kickoff. They won both kickoff and then the first master, and then they started going down just because the meta started changing, and like all the different compositions started coming out.
We can't mention Sentinels without talking about Zekken. We've mentioned a lot of top quality duelists, Jorgamo, Aspas, Demon One, but Zekken for me is one of the most explosive, most top draw duelists that we have in Americas. And as I say this, I'm going to probably move them towards the top end of international. And that's not because of him, it's in spite of him. I think as good as Bang and Narrate are, just not having TenZ or Sassy, I feel like they're on different levels, right? Like Bang and Narrate, in my opinion, have like a higher ceiling, but Sassy and TenZ were operating on a very high level very consistently for a long time. And Sassy was that consistent floor which really helped build them up last year with TenZ. And I just worry that with this, you open up the ceiling and maybe lose some of the floor at the same time, at least like initially in kickoff. I don't want to jump the gun and say that I think these guys are going to be amazing. You happy to settle on this, or now seeing it all in full, is there anything that you need to sort of change?
I mean, it is your list. I would just say I would not put us in title contenders just because I don't want any preferential treatment.
Sure.
I don't want to be this guy, like, oh, my team is the best one.
Okay, we'll put you like, yeah, okay. If you want my list, I'd maybe put it more like this. I don't know. I think that it's hard to say, because when you actually look at it, you look at all these teams and you're like, wow, these guys are good. Oh, hang on a minute. Wait, they're all like in the same part of the bracket.
Same bracket. Yeah.
So that you do still have lowers to go through and whatnot for any of these teams. But it's the best league. It's the best league for a reason. At least towards the top end, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
I'll get killed by the rest of EMEA for saying it, but yeah, it's highly competitive.
I mean, for me, I would still put Sentinels on top, and
okay.
I mean, for me, it's like I kind of have the inside info, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Where we scrimmed those teams. For us personally, it felt like they are the best ones. Right. But obviously, like, there are other factors. It's just for me, it would look like this.
Yeah. All right. We'll land on this version then, and you can take any of the criticism, and we'll see how it goes. But
all right.
Yeah, that's about it, man. I've really appreciated having you on, having some chats about the past, the present, and the future. Of course, with that in mind, what's next for you in the sort of 2 weeks? 2.5 weeks that we've got until your season resumes for 2025?
I mean, for me, it's like I need to get my visa first, which is, a legit concern at this point.
Moving
hopefully, I would be there on time. I think with how everything is set up, I would be there for the first game for sure. But we're starting scrims very early after New Year. Obviously, we need a lot of the players to travel to LA so we can start scrimming, but we do have like a good 2.5 weeks maybe of scrims, so we're gonna be working very hard during that time, and yeah, we just go into kickoff and hope for the best.
All right, thanks for joining, man. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Have a great rest of your off season. We'll catch you then.